So my name is Ben Crawford. I'm the CEO of CentralNic. We're a 16-year-old domain name registry. We have 27 domain extensions under management at the moment. And we supply 1,500 registrars all over the world, including many wholesale registrars who then supply a total of 100,000 domain name resellers around the world with our domains. We launched .brand Solutions as pretty much the first and defining company or service specialized in .brands at the beginning of this year by hiring account executives all over the world, including some that have a responsibility for Bulgaria. And essentially we enable communities, brands and entrepreneurs to get top-level domains and then run their business as a partner. We're not a consultancy. We don't advise anyone to pay consultants. We advise them to partner with people that are going to ensure their success. Next slide, thanks. So the application window to get your top-level domain opens January 12th. I did another event with Rod Beckstrom a couple of weeks ago when a journalist said, how many of these top-level domains are there going to be? And he said, we don't know, but when I ask around, I hear up to 4,000. They can actually delegate 1,000 a year. And potential applicants essentially need to decide now, because there's a huge amount of work to be done between today and when you actually get into the business. Next slide, please. So first of all, you've got to decide what you're going to actually apply for. So there are many options. Obviously, if you're a brand, typically you're going to apply for your brand name, but in which languages? If you have business in the world that uses Cyrillic, you're going to obviously want to use Cyrillic. If you only are operating in the ASCII world, you might want that. Many brands that we're talking about are thinking that maybe the next round won't be for 5 years, and so they're going to have to think about what markets do they want to enter in the next 5 years and where do they want to have their top-level domains. People are obviously looking for generics, for keywords, which are words which are searched frequently on Google, geographics, if you're a government, communities, if you're a distinct language group, for instance, and obviously IDNs, as I mentioned. Next slide, please. Okay, so what are your requirements? Basically, we're not just talking about acquiring a piece of intellectual property. You're actually going to start a business here, or a new product line, or indeed a new method of protecting your intellectual property. So you're going to say, why am I doing this? Why am I not just buying a second level domain? So, sometimes it's cheaper. As many of you know, toys.com, the domain name cost over $4 million. So it would be much cheaper to get .toys. What's unique about it? ICANN actually needs you to explain why this domain needs to exist, and so you really need to think that through. What kind of model? Closed, restricted, or open? Closed meaning that only a very limited group of people can use the domain. So typically if a brand is getting their .brand and they only want to use it for their own company, we call that closed. Restricted might be, for instance, an industry association. For instance, a medical industry association might only allow doctors to use the domain, so it's going to be restricted. Most people that want a website will not be able to buy it. And finally, open means that you're out there competing with com and info and the other domain extensions that are open. Security, stability, and registrant protection are obviously issues that are policy issues, but also technology issues, and how you structure and distribute your TLD. Every TLD that's really existed up until now has been sold through registrars. Is that something that you want to do? Do you want to create your own website where you sell the domains? Because now the regulations relating to co-ownership of registrars and registries are relaxed for new top-level domains. Next slide, thank you. So, who is going to apply? Often if you're a large company, many large companies are deciding to set up a subsidiary specifically to apply for a top-level domain. You might want to ask, what jurisdiction should that be in? What tax regime would you like that to fall under? Are you thinking about potentially bringing in other investors in future? Would you want to sell it? All of these things mean that you have to think about what is the company that's going to be applying. Also things like what privacy laws do you want? What data protection laws do you want? And obviously how that fits in with your current organisation. There's no point in putting the entity in a low tax regime if then when you take the dividends out of that company you end up paying higher tax on it anyway. Next slide please. So next is the team, and we talk very much about team and people with. So first of all, who will execute the application and eventually the TLD? So you're looking for people who are executors. Again, our advice is do not pay consultants. That's not what you need. You don't need advice. But you need someone to actually do the work. Someone that has a track record of doing the work. So they can be employees or they can be partners. But essentially you want people with a stake in the success of your business. And again, we would say, do not believe that it's simply a question of who's managed the top-level domain before, because basically the rule book is completely different. The technological requirements are completely new. On the other hand, has someone just built a machine to do this? Do you really want them learning how to actually make it operate with your domain? I doubt it. I think what you're really looking for is people that actually do this for a living today. Next slide, thanks. All right, your business plan. Now, obviously, having a business plan is an ICANN requirement, but whether it was or not, you would want to have a business plan, because what we're talking about is a new business or a new product, or at very least a new area of costs, which you are going to want to predict and measure and control. Where is your financing coming from? Again, this is an ICANN requirement. They're essentially not interested in people that have a great idea, but if it fails, will not be able to pay the bills. They're really looking for people that have a financial plan that backs up their business plan, whether that business plan succeeds or fails. And I would say, obviously, give that advice to anyone going into new business. Do not finance your business on the basis that everything you plan will succeed. You've got to finance it taking risk into account. Obviously, there's many different ways of financing it. Our company will finance domains. So either by offering credit, by investing, by taking equity in the business rather than taking money out, and so on. It's one option, but obviously, I know some people that are running their domains as a not-for-profit and getting people to donate money to them. I know people that are getting government grants. I know people that are have investors in their domains, and obviously many companies are saying what part of the budget will finance this. Is it the marketing department? Is it fraud prevention? Is it online security? Is it corporate because it's a strategic branding decision? And is it within marketing? Is it digital marketing or is it branding? So there are many issues about how to be financed. And of course the question, if you're going to sell domains, what are your projections going to be? There's actually an awful lot of data available. Again, my view is don't pay for that data. Find somebody that actually wants to partner with you and help you succeed, and they should have that data and make it available to you. Next page. Technical solution. So again, I guess our advice, and we would say this, is pick someone that is already very, very successful and launches many, many domains, and that's what they do for a living. Don't pick somebody that has created technology which they claim can do this but has never been tried before. But on the other hand, be open-minded. The technical portion of the application is extremely detailed, extremely complicated, and you should just be requiring whoever is doing the technology to write that for you. They have to write it in English, so you need someone that you're confident is going to be able to achieve that. And you have to be very careful about picking the right technical partner who can actually fulfill all of the requirements. So for instance, to run a new TLD, you do need standard EPP, for instance, as the protocol you use to talk with your registrars. It won't do to have something that you've created yourself. Technical requirements for new TLDs are higher than anything that really has gone before. So obviously we've talked about DNSSEC. Again, we run 27 domains and they all run DNSSEC at the moment. You want to pick somebody that has a lot of experience in that area. ThickWhois, which is a much higher requirement than say .com has, for instance, and I mean, there's a bunch of other technical requirements which you can read. Next page, thanks. Okay, this is I think the last one was 7. Anyway, so secure financing. So how much money do you need? Well, just starting with ICANN, the ICANN application fee is $185,000. To be precise exactly how this works, you pay $5,000 in January and then you pay the balance when you lodge your actual application. You also need to have a letter of credit or cash in escrow that represents 3 years of operating costs. So if you're a big company that always has millions of dollars in the bank, getting a letter of credit like that probably won't be a problem, or if you're a government department. But if you can't get a letter of credit from your bank, you need to actually put cash in escrow. Then ICANN's going to charge you $25,000 a year for the first 50,000 domains. Above 50,000, it's $1 a year. You also need to put data in escrow, so you need to basically pay a third-party company to keep a live copy of your database. All of this is because if you failed as a business, ICANN would then be able to take your money and take your data and give it to someone else to continue to run the domains. So it's a safety net that ICANN puts in place. Now that's just ICANN requirements. Obviously there's something else you need. One, you need to write an application, which we'll go into. But as an American lawyer told me, if ICANN's going to charge $185,000 for reading your application, I think you're going to find people are going to charge you quite a lot for writing that application. However, there's quite a range. Obviously then, your business expenses, your marketing costs, it costs a lot of money to sell domains. So if you actually want to sell domains through registrars, the reality is today, I've launched 3 domains this year, I'm launching another one next year, and today for the large American registrars, for instance, will just say, write me a check. Write me a check and I will help you launch your domain. So it's not a matter of just showing up and saying, I've got this great idea, because there's going to be 400 other people with ideas, plus all the guys who are there now who really don't want to be moved out of the way. And for them, they've got tens of millions of dollars at stake in keeping their position in the registrars now. So they're going to be happy to pay to hang on to that. Next page. Policies. So you need policies. Basically, suddenly you're the boss here with your own top-level domain. So you're working out who can get it, who can't, for how many years, what's the notice periods required. Do you take down sites that don't follow your policies? If you take them down, what kind of notice do you have to give them, etc.? What are the dispute resolution issues and so on? So you're kind of writing your own rule book. There's a lot of guidelines from ICANN and there's obviously a lot of precedent, but you need a policy document. There's issues around Sunrise, for instance, which is particular windows where you have to, before the domains become available on a first-come, first-served basis, you need to make them available to trademark owners. Again, you need whole policies for that and so on. So in other words, you need a lawyer or somebody who's very experienced in this specific area to write this, and you want to stick that in your application, because obviously the way that it's assessed is, do the policies match with the business plan, match with the financing plan. Next page, thanks. So the application itself is roughly 200 pages, the ones that we have written. It's really, then it goes in two streams. So you write this application, you submit it over this computer system called TAS, and it's like a cut and paste thing. They've done a lot of testing of the system, but they've never actually done it live with hundreds of people all over the world simultaneously loading real applications on there. So I'd say start early in case anything goes wrong. And what would I say about this? The application, it's a very serious and difficult document, so I would say make sure that your partners are committed to writing the application in such a way that you will actually win. It's in a way, it's not that difficult because there's a point scoring system and it's all explained. So you should know in advance that your application is going to succeed, because you can score it yourself or get somebody that is very harsh to score it for you. And we would certainly advise that you do that. So in the part, so when I've said don't pay consultants, I'd say it's worth paying people to actually write the application. So that's not giving you advice, but it's actually doing the work. Next page, thanks. And so you get the domain, you put in the application, two things happen. One, ICANN evaluates it. The other thing, they publish it and invite people to object to it, and then you have to deal with your objections. At the end of the day, if everything goes as planned, you have the domain. That's actually when the work starts. Like, this is just, it's like, I say to people, it's like deciding you want to sell real estate. Getting your TLD is just like getting your real estate license. Once you got the license, that's when the work really starts, because it's actually a very difficult and competitive job selling domain names. So that's really it for me. Next page. These are the key dates. Window opens. March 29th is the last day you can register. They post a list of applicants, and then they post the results. The first two TLDs are expected to be up at the end of, or at the beginning of 2013, all going well. Next page. Okay, so thank you all. If any of you would like to discuss anything, feel free to come and find me today, or indeed give me a call anytime. I'm based in London, so pretty much same time zone. And if anyone has any questions now, of course, I'm happy to answer, though I realise we're running behind.
Yeah, I think we have time for 1-2 questions, so if there are any.
There are people at the back.
Yeah, we have a question, but just we are looking for the microphone.
Каква е истинската стойност с адвокатските за разни полисите или допълнително? Предполагам, че доста адвокати ще трябва да бъдат включени. Да си отвориш собствен домен. Вие казахте, че сте пуснали 3 до сега. Каква е средната стойност на всеки един от тях?
Oh no, we're applying for a lot more than 3. We've got many clients that are applying, and then we're applying for a lot of our own. Cost, I would say the lowest cost I've ever heard anybody say is total $300,000. So So that means that they've found someone to do all the application work, write the business plan, raise the financing and so on for $115,000, and then the rest goes to ICANN. So that's just the upfront fees, and that's assuming that there's no disputes. The chief counsel of Yahoo told me that he advises companies to have between $1.5 and $2 million just to cover their legal fees. So I'd say that the reality will lie between those two. If you want to launch a new global domain like a .xxx competitor or something, I would imagine you'd want $5 to $10 million to cover your legal fees and your marketing fees. So it really depends on what you want to do. I could say I have clients that have revenues of under $10 million a year, and so they're looking at trying to keep the costs as low as possible, and they're getting the domain because it's just something so important to their business that they really have no choice. Other questions?
Well, thank you. Thank
you all
very
very much. Thank you.